God Family Country, how's everybody doing today? Gonna start off with a verse. We chose a kamikaze verse. It's Matthew 12:35, and what a kamikaze verse means is you kind of just open it up and just pick one out, just right there, a random verse. But this one's gonna fit today's show. It's gonna say, Matthew 12:35, a good man out of the good treasures of his heart brings forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasures brings forth evil things. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. And that's red letter talk right there. That means, if you don't know, that means Jesus spoke it. A lot of the Bibles will have red for all the words that Jesus spoke. And I think it actually is going to apply, and you'll see at the end why. Now let's jump into this. I wanted to do my first reaction. Matthew McConaughey, Joe Rogan. This was a while ago, possibly during the lockdowns, because they're not sitting in the studio together, not really sure. Maybe Joe is just allowing them to kind of have this episode over Skype, and Matthew McConaughey is going to talk a little bit about his belief in God and being betrayed by some people, being denied by some people. And it's really interesting. Let's take a look.
It's all bad then. It's all used because it's false.
Have you encountered difficulty expressing this in Hollywood? You know, Hollywood is predominantly left-wing and very secular or Jewish in some circles, but it's not like a place where Christian fundamental values are espoused openly. You know, a lot of...
So here's two guys in Hollywood. They know what's going on in Hollywood. They're describing Hollywood for you. There's no need for us Christians to be conspiracy theorists. It's out in the open what's going on in Hollywood. They're very atheist, and if they're not atheist, they're very anti-Christian. In Hollywood, there is a group of people, I don't know what they could be described as, but just people who just hate Christianity, and those that straddle the fence or in shame deny it to get ahead. Man, you can see that happen a couple of times in the Bible, and Jesus says that doesn't end too well. So let's listen on.
A lot of Jewish folks are in Hollywood, and that seems to be okay with a lot of people. But some other religions, particularly if you're a fundamentalist Christian or if you have Christian values, a lot of people frown upon that.
Notice they said fundamentalist Christian, which pretty much means like someone who believes the Bible. And they're not trying to say, hey, look, dude, I see what you're doing, but I'm okay with it. I'm just not going to say anything about it. You know, the Bible, just kind of very watered down. This fundamental thing just means like somebody who's taken it seriously. If you're going to take anything seriously in life, why wouldn't you take your religion, your belief system serious? If it truly is where you're going to spend the rest of your life for all eternity, and this is just a tiny, tiny blip, why would you be so concerned on what people think for such a small period of time while you make your initial investment in life? Because you never existed before. You're born and you're going to always exist. You're going to never not exist. And wouldn't you want the majority of your existence to be on the best foot forward? I mean, do you think those that have passed on care they offended somebody? They were trying to hide the way they felt about certain things because they just wanted to kind of get along and ended up regretting it in the end. Versus, I don't think anybody who stands before God is wishing they would have did less of God's work. I think that at the end of the day, they would want to do more of God's work. And I think that's going to be for all of us, no matter how much we do or don't do. Somebody who is focused on a relationship is always going to want to have done more. And I can speak to parents right now. you see your kid, and maybe your kid has grown from a toddler to a child, and maybe a child to a preteen, or however old that child is. You can look back and always be like, oh man, I wish I would have just one more time, because there's a last day that you give your kid a piggyback ride. There's the last time that you hold your kid and like cradle them. There's the last time you feed them a bottle. There's the last time where they step on your toes and then you walk for them as they're walking down the hallway or in the living room, wherever it is. So there's a last time that you do that. And you always wish, well, at least in my mind as a parent, I always wish that I would have been able to, oh man, I would love to do that just one more time. Or I would have did that more. I never wish that I did it less. How much more so will you wish that you did for your Heavenly Father who's in heaven? Let's continue listening on.
Why do you think that is? And have you had difficulties with that?
I don't know. I haven't had difficulties. I have had, and I won't throw any people under the bus, but I have had moments where I was on stage receiving an award in front of my peers in Hollywood. And there were people in the crowd that I have prayed with before dinners many times. And when I thank God, I saw some of those people go to clap, but then notice that, whoa, it's going to be a bad thing on my resume, and then sit back on their hands.
That's interesting, because all these people who are allegedly outspoken, they're standing for what's right, they're sticking to their beliefs, they're trying to be these very authentic people, shy away from the most important thing. And Matthew's calling them out, saying, yeah, when I got up there and I was thanking God, you guys cowarded because you were afraid. You denied God before men. And there's a verse about that, and it doesn't end well, because it says, if you deny me before men, I will also deny you before my Father. That's what Jesus says. Doesn't sound like a good outcome.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen people read the room and go, whoa, that wouldn't bode well for me in the future. If for getting a job or getting votes or what have you. Yeah. I have seen that. I've witnessed that. I don't.
They're not even asking them to preach their faith or to make a declaration. They're just praying in unison, and they're afraid to do that in Hollywood. Somebody knows something about something in Hollywood that's unspoken about, that is in Hollywood, everybody, it's like when you're at your job, everybody knows, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Everybody in Hollywood knows, hey, if I do this, it's going to affect me negatively, which leads me to believe there's a culture of anti-Christian and just kind of a lot of Christian-phobic politics in Hollywood, which makes sense. Judging by the material they put out, judging by what they show you, despite 55% of America being Christian, they sure are in production like we don't exist at all.
Judge them for it. I just wish, that it seems like a silly argument. One of the things that our people, some people in our industry, not all of them, but there's some that go to the left so far as our friend Jordan Peterson, who's back, saw his video being back, that go to the illiberal left side so far that is so condescending and patronizing to 50% of the world that need the empathy that the liberal side gives and should give. To throw somebody's, illegitimize them because they say they are a believer.
You hear that? Canceled. Wait, canceled because you're a believer in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? So again, building on this very toxic anti-Christian culture that is spreading and is definitely in mainstream media, is definitely in mainstream entertainment, is definitely in the way that we all make movies, definitely in the anti-Christian behavior is everywhere, and it's rampant. And it seems like they're all aware of it.
It's just so arrogant, and in some ways hypocritical to me. Yeah, so I haven't run into, I haven't headbutted trouble on that, but I've always, look, my career, I've pretty much gone my own path, and by hook or by crook, just trying to figure a way out into what I was doing, and I haven't measured or noticed where it has harmed or gotten in my way of what I wanted to achieve in Hollywood.
There you go. Let's start right there with Matthew McConaughey sharing his faith as a believer. Not even being overtly just saying, hey, I'm a believer. This is what I believe in. I have these morals, and I'm just going to pray real quick. And had prayed with those same exact people. And all they did was they decided that I don't like that you're praying in front of other people. And now we prayed together when no one else could see us. But now that people could see us, I don't want to pray with you openly. There's his friend. So how cold is that? So I'm going to show you this verse real quick, and we're going to go ahead and follow along with Matthew McConaughey as he reads at the Riverbend Church in Texas. Matthew McConaughey lives in Texas.
See how this kind of thing works by looking no further than our own body. Our body has many parts. It has limbs, organs, cells. But no matter how many parts we can name, we are still one body. It's exactly the same with Christ. By means of his one Spirit, we all said goodbye to our partial and piecemeal lives. We each used to independently call our own shots, but then we entered into a large and integrated life in which he has the final say in everything. This is what we proclaimed in word and action when we were baptized. Each of us is now a part of his resurrection body, refreshed and sustained at one fountain, his Spirit, where we all come to drink. The old labels that we once used to identify ourselves, labels like Jew or Greek, slave or free, are no longer useful. We need something larger and more comprehensive.
The old labels. Now notice a lot of these labels had to do with race back then as well. Greek was almost a race of people. Jews, a race of people as well as to be described as religious. So how could we look at that at modern day? Black, white, Asian, Mexican, Chinese, Vietnamese, list goes on. Czechoslovakian, Russian. What they're saying is the old labels are no longer useful. And you can see in modern day society that labels are no longer useful. They divide and separate, divide and conquer. And how it divides and conquers us all is that it just kind of really destroys the unity.
Let's take a moment to think about how this makes all of us more significant and not less. A body isn't just a single part blown up into something huge. It's all the different but similar parts arranged and functioning together. Think about it. If foot said, I am not elegant like hand, embellished with rings, I guess I don't belong to this body, would that make it so? Of course not. And if ear said, I am not beautiful like you, eye, limpid and expressive, I don't deserve a place on the head, would you want to remove it from the body? If the body was all eye, how could it hear? If the body was all ear, how could it smell? As it is, we see that God has carefully placed each part of the body right where he wanted it. Now let's also think about how this keeps our significance from getting blown up into self-importance.
Like that part right there in the word, how all of us have an equal part. And that's something important to remember in society, especially when you're seeing somebody who may have a job that you deem less than. Someone has to do that job. AI is not there yet and hasn't been there for thousands of years. So everybody comes together and does what they can. Yes, of course, you should always aspire to be whatever you can in life. People fall on hard times. They got to take a job real quick and do what they can to survive while they maybe chase their passion, which is eventually going to pay off, or they're a young kid going through college, or they just fell on hard times, or they had to enter the workforce again. Reminds me of a story when I was checking out at a big corporate store. Somebody, one of the cashiers who knows me, says, can you believe this person was so rude to me today? They came up to me and said, why are you still working here? And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, shouldn't you be retired by now? Like, why are you working? And she was like, well, because I have to work. And he's like, was so smug about the idea that she was there working and checking out. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I almost didn't believe it because it just really didn't make any sense. And she said, yeah, he just came up and kind of berated me a little bit about me working at my age. And I was just thinking, like, here's a guy who doesn't know this one. I said, because I asked him, I was like, does he know you? She's like, no, he doesn't know me at all. And I was like, even more interesting. I told her, I said, he doesn't even know anything about your life. He doesn't know if you recently had a medical emergency that drained your savings, saved your life, and now you're just happy to be alive and back in the workforce. He doesn't know if you're trying to help a family member. He doesn't know if you fell on hard times. He doesn't know if you like to do. He doesn't know. He just assumed that, hey, this person shouldn't be doing this, and this is where they should or shouldn't be. It was very ignorant of him, and I wish I remembered more of the story, but that was kind of the whole story in a nutshell. And I said, wow, that's really rude. You shouldn't even, because I could tell that it bothered her. So I let her know, like, somebody like that's really not that intelligent. And the reason why they're not intelligent, because they don't have the logic to be able to say, even if you can't sympathize and you don't have sympathy, you could still have the logic to say, there's a lot of things that can happen to people that would cause them to be in this position. And to be very smug about it just proves very callous and very immature and very unintelligent. Even if he makes more money, it doesn't make somebody wise if somebody's doing better than somebody else. And from this interaction, this person felt it was almost like they were speaking or punching down, as they call it. Let's listen on. But the whole point of me saying that is everybody has a part, and everybody's part is important, and you should treat them as such.
For no matter how significant we are, it is only because of what we are a part of. Think about it. An enormous eye or a gigantic hand would not be a body, it would be a monster.
You can't be anything without the body. And that brings me to this. A lot of people are like, I'm self-made. I did it on my own. Most people need a consumer to make anything happen. Jeff Bezos has a consumer. Yeah, he's at the point now where he can kind of say whatever he wants, but he made his money off the consumer. He provided a service. He needed people at one point to rock with him, to shop at his store, to go to Amazon.com. Uber, as rude as they are and as badly as they treat their people, needed those people in the beginning to break laws that were in place and do sketchy things on their insurance just to drive their customers on the app. All Uber had to do is front the money, build the app, and make their living off of their consumer and on the backs of the independent contractors that they hired. And I'm not picking on any of these people. I'm just saying, for a business to be built, any business, you're going to need people working for you and customers coming to you, whether that customer is a consumer or it's a business to business, which we call B2B. Everybody has to answer to somebody at the end of the day. And that's what we need to remember, is that somebody's like, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. What makes that person great? How do they do that all on their own? Because they need to make money from something. And that's usually from somebody else using something that they offer that makes them money at the end of the day. Let's not be naive about that, and let's not buy into that. It's very popular in American culture right now, as far as not American culture as us as Americans, but it's very popular in certain subsets of our culture, especially certain music.
What we have is one body with many parts, each its proper size and in its proper place. No part is important on its own. Can you imagine the eye telling the hand, get lost, I don't need you, hand, or the head telling the foot, you're fired, your job has been phased out? As a matter of fact, in practice, it seems to work the other way. The lower the part, the more basic the part of the body, the therefore more necessary. You think about it, we can live without an eye, for instance, but we cannot live without a stomach. When it's a part of our own body we are concerned with, it makes no difference whether the part is visible or clothed, higher or lower. We give it dignity and honor just as it is, without comparisons. And if anything, we seem to have more concern for the lower parts of our body than the higher. I mean, think about it. If we had to choose, wouldn't we prefer good digestion to a full head of hair? Yeah, that's debatable. I mean,
Yeah.
whoo, hang on, I can handle a little indigestion, but come on. Been working on this hairline for a while. God, give me a break on that one. The way God designed our bodies is a model for understanding our lives together in society as well as in the church. Every part dependent on every other part. The parts we mention and the parts we do not mention. The parts we see and the parts we don't see.
Very interesting. And for the record, they didn't have Tums back then, so I don't know what they were taking to help their stomach out. Couldn't go to the doctor. Couldn't take a laxative. I'm not really sure. Up to biblical time medicine. Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't want to have chronic stomach issues. But I hear Matthew. He's just making a joke. This is good stuff. Let's listen on. It's almost over.
If one part hurts, every other part is involved in the hurt and in the healing. If one part flourishes, every other part enters into that exuberance. We are Christ's body. That's who we are. We must never forget this. Only as we accept our part of that body does our part mean anything.
That's good right there. I really like that. It really brings in who we are as a people and what God's intention is for all of us and how we should live. And that nobody is important. Even the pastor who gets up, he's just the face. You know, there's maybe somebody in charge who is, you know, maybe, and then that's the pastor, or there's a wise council or a circle, a board of directors at the church that makes these decisions. But at the end of the day, we're all supposed to be doing one thing, and we all play a part, and every part of that is part of the body. And the eye needs the mouth to eat, to digest the food, the hands and the feet and the legs and the arms to move. And so everybody at the end of the day plays a very, very important role. Yes, some people you may not be the body part that's seen. You may not be the face of the church, but doesn't mean you're not important. That face can't move around without a body. So that's what they're saying there. I really like that. Let's